We are recording, Fernando.
TCHN.
Jeff, we're up to 30. Do you want to wait a little bit more or?
It's still a little slower.
You know, I'd give it just a couple more minutes. But not much more, I don't think. Yeah, you're over 30 now. Okay, Fernando, the mic's all yours.
Okay. Okay, thank you all for coming. This slide basically is just informational, so you can have my contact information. And my name is Fernando Aguirre. I'm with the Biggest Release Rotary Club. I was actual district community service director in the year 2018, 2019. And the incoming director is going to be John Marquez, and I put his contact information right there on the screen for you, as well as the governor-elect and the Scott Phillips, which will be the governor in 2022, 2023. Basically, this session is covering community service at the district training level. I've done this training this will be my 4th turn at doing the training throughout the years. So hopefully you'll get some good work out of this information. Let's see here. Let me stop this. How do I stop? Problem with my PowerPoint. Just give me a second. I need to figure out how to, okay, there it goes. Okay, we're gonna move to the next slide, which is, and our host today is Jeff King. He's the assistant governor. I'm not sure which region you're in, Jeff, but
Actually, this year, Fernando, I'm chief of staff for the district.
Okay. Okay, so basically, we're supposed to have 69 people here. So with that many people, we're going to try to limit the question and answer until the end of it. Or if you have one that needs to be immediately answered, please put it in the chat. And either if I notice it, I'll reply to it, or Jeff will notify me that there's a question that needs to be answered right away. So let's get started. As a community service director, your responsibilities include continuing and developing projects that address the needs in your community. This session will focus on ideas, projects, possibilities that can make a difference for your club. Project ideas and tips for how to accomplish successful projects will be discussed. We're going to share successful projects, strategies to build support and engagement. And hopefully we'll learn about conducting community needs assessment and its benefits. And the best way to do that is to use local resources. Examples would be local city, county representative staffs, and understanding strategies to revise and rebuild older projects. Outcomes of this session, again, will be community service outreach committees, how to create them and how to maintain them. How to partner with other community groups, how to create sustainable projects with community involvement with Rotarians Interact, Rotaract, family and friends, create and maintain community service outreach contacts lists. Oops, sorry, went too far. In our club, basically, all the times that I've been community service director, I created these community service committees, and they all basically have a specific function within our club. And I also did it because of the fact that when we do our annual budget, we basically will plug in different amounts of money for each different committee per year. And then our chair, the chair of that committee, will have up to that allocation money to run projects within each of those committees. And the one that we added, or I personally added this year, because Rotary is changing and the world is changing, we added Humanity and Peace as a separate committee within our club. You can do so in your club or just run however you think is best, because every club, every community is a little bit different. So we've had a lot of gang violence and things like that in our community. So that's one of the things we're addressing now and trying to run projects to help alleviate some of the gang violence and things like that in our area. If you're a new incoming director and have never done it, one of the key things that I created in our club was a separate field and it's listed as advisor. If you look at the screen there, and what I would do is basically look at somebody who's been in your club, who has been community service director in the past and has run a lot of good projects, things like that, and ask them if they will be your advisor for your first year or second year, whatever it is. And that way you have somebody to bounce ideas off of, or they can give you great ideas on how to run that community service avenue of service. The most important thing to do is find active chairs for each committee. And if you have that, then that becomes their responsibility to come up with projects and actually find people to be members within that committee, and also run the project so that you're not having to do everything within community service yourself. Because as director, basically you should find strong chairs for every one of your committees and then report to the board the projects you're doing on a monthly basis. And in our club, basically the committee chairs report to the director a week before our board meeting and give us a list of projects we're doing so that we can report to the board as a director each month, so that you're not have to personally create the projects, find the projects, run the projects, and all of that kind of stuff. So that would be a great help for you. The other thing is that's really worked very successfully in our club, because the bulk of the projects that we've done in my club this year have been proposed by Rotarians within the club, or a friend that has told them about an issue or something they need help with in the community. Then they bring it to our club. And then if we have the funding or the resources, or go out and find resources to help them fulfill that project. And then another important aspect that we do a lot in our club is, on a monthly basis, we will stand up as director, or I'll call up a committee chair that's run a couple of projects and have them report back to the members within our club, so that we always have them up to date and hopefully aware of what's going on, and try to get more people involved within doing community service. Okay, one of the aspects is partnerships within the community. And here in Bakersfield, our club, we have actually created basically annual partnerships with Bakersfield Homeless Center, Boys and Girls Club, CASA, Jameson Center, which is basically a center where children that get taken when a police responds to violence or whatever within a home, they'll take the children and put them at Jameson for 2 weeks until they're put into foster care. So we will support Jameson Center every year. Then we also partner with the county, city, and local schools, and basically they'll give us ideas on projects or wish lists, things like that, you can pick up a lot of projects through those organizations. Nonprofits, which would be like CASA. There's a lot of them in our, there's a Chinese organization that teaches Chinese. They have a Chinese school that teaches Chinese to individuals. So we'll support them with backpack school supplies, things like that. We've also partnered with the blood banks here in Kern County, and have been doing a lot of that feeding and food distribution since the onset of the pandemic. And then we also, very important, is to work with the youth services director, and because they're also will help you come up with projects and also get you a lot of volunteers for any hands-on type projects that you have. And it's also important to get them involved in your club through community service, because that's what they like to do, and is basically active parts of Rotary. They should really be involved in all the projects that you could possibly get them involved in. Just a slide just showing the incoming district governor, Dana. And then basically we're going to be talking about what your club's favorite community service project is at this point. We're going to be going through slides, some of the things we do. Our club, for probably 15 years, their claim to fame has been backpacks. So we basically used to hand out about 1,500 backpacks a year. The need is not as great as it used to be because there's so many other organizations that are providing backpacks now that we don't need to provide as many as we used to, but we still have specific organizations and schools that can't seem to get backpacks from other organizations, and we'll actively support them each year still. So this year we'll probably wind up providing about 1,000 backpacks at the end of the year. Speaking of getting your Rotarians involved and families and friends, these are just pictures here of Rotarians and their families and friends that came out at the backpack handout. And some of these folks came from another event, which is basically a Valley Fever walk. So they went and did Valley Fever walk and then showed up and handed out backpacks at the homeless center. So getting your Rotarians involved is a huge part, because once they get involved and are happy, they'll enjoy the project, and then they'll volunteer for more and more of your community service projects. On the right, you'll see a picture that we also will try to engage, because there's a lot of veterans in our club. So we'll try to engage with schools and try to do a Veterans Day at the school and then sponsor that. And then the kids really enjoy those kind of days when you have a Rotarian who's also a veteran go up and speak and tell them about the importance of being patriotic and volunteering and doing service for your nation. Some of the projects that we've done this year, basically we don't do, I mean, we do pretty much anything that people ask us if it's within our budget and it makes sense. So our motto basically in our club is, you know, if it's going to help one individual and you think it's worthy, then do the project. So in our club, saying no to a community project is usually never happens. I have yet to say no unless we have no budget for it or can't find resources in the community to help us do that project. So with the pandemic, we haven't been able to do as many hands-on projects. So we've been doing some sponsorships. So we sponsored the local museum art deal, and they went out to the marketplace and they did a lot. And this is the sponsored one that our club did. We also sponsored a mural at a local school that has issues with respect and gang violence. And this is what they put up on the side of the school. So we sponsored that. In our area, our clubs are basically starting to work more and more together each year. And this is the downtown cleanup that we did in August. And these are Rotarians from 4 different Rotary clubs within Bakersfield. And then this is the mayor of the city. And she's also a fellow Rotarian. Then this is the Garces Interact. They called us about wanting to do donations for the Fire Creek. We had a big fire up here in our area. So they collected a bunch of stuff and had a couple of carloads full of things that they donated to the Creek Fire. And because of their involvement, the city of Bakersfield awarded each of the students that was involved in setting up the project and spearheading the donation, they gave them a certificate of recognition. So we also received, like I said, we try to say no to any project that we know we can try to do. And this is basically showing the McFarland Track Club. They were basically having to share track shoes, and they're basically had been state champions many years, as you can see. So between the youth services and community service, we raised $2,000 and donated to them, and so they could buy all new shoes for all of their track team. And just a picture of the magazine or newspaper. The biggest project we've done this year is basically we have a bike path that runs along the Kern River in Bakersfield, and all the signage, all the signs here, there's 15 monuments that runs along there. So we paid and had installed 15 new ones because they've been there for 15 years and they were bleached out by sun or hit by graffiti and things like that. So this basically just shows one of the monuments and the new signs they put in. And they're putting in a new extension. We're actually working on trying to get that new monuments on that extension as well. And as I was telling Jeff, because of the pandemic, we're doing more and more food distribution. So this is just a photo of the food distribution with the food bank that we deal with. A very important thing that I did 3 years ago was I went out to the community, the schools, the city and county governments, and we got together with the staff of the people, several Rotarians, and we created a needs assessment. So now we have basically year after year, we can have somebody to go to see what things need to be improved in the community, and also follow up on projects that we have done and make sure that they're still sustainable, and if there's any changes or repairs, then we can go ahead and do that. So city government and county government, a huge asset for you guys if you want to go out there and do an assessment, especially with the pandemic. You know, a lot of people will lose contacts with a lot of those people in the organization. So you as incoming community service director should really go back and address and make contact with all the organizations that you've dealt with in the past. And that would be a huge avenue for you guys to find projects to do in your upcoming year. This is just more examples of the organizations that you can tackle. And like I said, every community is a little different. So ours are, you know, we've been doing it for so long. We have a list of people that we just go back to. And I would recommend that your club do the same thing year after year. Just create a contact list that you can, you know, transfer from one director to the next. And it just makes your job so much easier as a director. All right. Basically, this is pretty much the last screen, and then we'll go to questions and answers. I'm Fernando Aguirre, again, facilitator. This is my email address in case you want to send me emails with questions. This is my personal cell phone number, so if you need to call me and talk to me, that's my number, and I'm a member of the Bakersfield East Rotary Club. John Marquez is the new incoming director, and the only info I could get for him was his email address. He's out of the country currently. That's why he couldn't give the presentation today. So basically, we're at questions and answers. So whoever has some, if you can post it on the Facebook and let me know, or Jeff know if you have any questions. Okay, talk about more about needs assessments. One of the questions. Sure. Let's go back over that. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, going back to needs assessment. Basically what I do is I just set up an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document, whichever you prefer. And then I put down the organization that I want to contact. And then I start contacting them, get the contact person, physically go out and meet with them. In the pandemic, I haven't, so there's been a lot of Zoom meetings and phone calls to these organizations. Hopefully by the time you take over in July, that won't be the case, because it's always good to meet somebody face to face and, you know, try to create a friendship with those people so that you can contact them year after year and they're willing to help you. And that's pretty much the biggest part of that is because once you create the contact list and meet with them, all you have to do is say, you know, this is my Rotary Club. We're interested in helping in the community. What things do you see in your area or your responsibility or your duties that you see that we can be involved in? That's how basically we got the river bike path done, is by contacting. We saw a need that the signs were basically old and unreadable. So we contacted the county and basically went through that whole process, and that's been going I mean, it's taken us almost 5 years to get from the point of discovering there was need to actually getting it done because of the regulations within our county and all the things that we had to do. So the projects that you have may not be a 1 year or a 1 month. It could be years to actually resolve some of these issues, but at least you know that you're doing that. Let's see. Okay, looks like there's a question from Brian. What are some of the particular community needs that are likely as the COVID lockdown situation evolves? Well, in our area, the biggest thing that that the COVID basically started, there was a huge need to support hospitals and staff because they were really, working really, really hard. So for the first 8 months of the COVID, we basically just focused on trying to find things to where we um, did feeds, and we fed dinner, lunch, things like that, provided lunch, things like that to the different hospitals within our area. The other thing that we've noticed is that a lot of we're starting to partner with some of the hospitals and offer um, different things to the hospital that they may need as far as, you know, sanitizer, masks, things like that, because that's still a huge need. It's not as big as it was at the very beginning because there was not many resources. There weren't many, but there's still a big need for that. So you can contact your schools, I mean, churches. We deal with a couple of different homeless centers and organizations that feed the homeless. So those are the kind of things you could look at as well with COVID. Make sure that they have personal aid items like um, sanitizer, masks for the homeless people. They're in desperate need of socks, clothing, besides food. So um, those kind of things are definitely going to be a need still as far as COVID goes on. See, Brian, you're probably saying. Brian has a good point. Brian, if you could unmute and tell us what you wrote in there on the chat, that would be helpful.
That wasn't me. The
Oh, it wasn't okay. So, let's see. It's from D Bemis.
That's me.
Okay.
I'm from Los Olivos Rotary in Santa Barbara County. And I have not been directly involved in this. I had a chairman who self-selected, and he and our president are working with a couple of the larger non-social service nonprofits in the area because we've got, just as an example, a woman and 4 children living in a car. She has to go to work, and when there was no in-person school, the kids had absolutely no way to attend. And this is not, it's always been an issue in our area, but never a huge issue. But the statistics indicate that we may need to open our eyes to recognize this as a new problem on a big scale.
Okay. Yeah, in our area, there's actually a bunch of organizations that have come together and created a homeless collaborative. So they work with the local government, city and county, and they're part of, there's 2 separate shelters that have been built here in Bakersfield, one run by the county, one run by the city. And that's because of those organizations came together about 5-6 years ago and started working on the homeless problem in our area. It's not getting any smaller; it's getting bigger year after year. It's and I'm sure it's going to be bigger. I mean, that's as fast as they come up with housing, there's a bigger need for it. So that's good advice there.
I just think that it's important to recognize that these needs are changing all the time. you were talking about the hospitals and the needs there that it really peaked, I think, over the last 6 months or so, like that. As we come out of COVID, the big situation, as people start going back to work, I just have a feeling that we're going to see new problems that are going to be different than before COVID and are going to be different than during COVID. But we just have to be aware of how that's changing all the time and how to be most relevant to our community and how to prioritize what we do so that we can provide the greatest benefit there. Because if you just keep doing the same thing you were doing before COVID, because now you're coming out of lockdown, I have a feeling that you're going to miss the boat on some of this stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's why I said you need to definitely work with the city and local governments, because they're on top of the COVID in our area big time, and I'm sure in your area the same thing. So if you at least reference them or call them and set up meetings with them, because I've met with the city council members and the county supervisors in our area to make sure that anything that we do is within their recommendations. We try not to do anything that that goes against their rulings or rules, regulations. At this point, it's changing on a daily basis. We may be locked down one day and then open the next, and then the next day we're locked down again. So it's crazy in our area, and I'm sure it's all of California's that way. It's like you're open and then you're closed. It's like anyone else have any questions or input? One thing we forgot to mention at the beginning is if you guys could put in your full name and what club you're in the chat, because it's being recorded, and that way we'll have a name to associate and be able to send you guys emails or whatever needs, and also get that information to Mr. Marquez for when he's taken over. Does anyone have any other questions? We still got quite a bit of time, so.
I have another question, if that's okay. I don't want to
Sure.
monopolize things.
No problem.
One question I had, and I'm relatively new to Rotary. You mentioned that your club, likes to be able to take on all needs whenever you can. One of the things that occurs to me is that, resources a lot of times are limited, though. And if every time you say yes to somebody, a lot of times you're having to say no to somebody else. What are there formal processes that any of the clubs use to identify what causes and what community needs they want to be most identified with, and how they want to distribute that? I mean, I know our club has probably at least 3 or 4 priorities, and it seems like to me that a process where we would, we want to dedicate about a quarter of our funding towards this. We really think we're identified with this, so we want more like 40 or 50% of our money to go towards this. Is there, a formal process to use for that, or example of a formal process to do that?
Yeah, in our club, in my club, basically the process we use is the committees, as I put the screen back up on the committees. So basically you as a director will create chairs within like education, veterans, first responders, because typically these are the kind of requests you get all the time. Like you're saying, there's limited budget. Like in our club, I think there's like 22,000 allocated to community service in the 2020-2021 year for community service. So basically the process we have is that somebody submits a request for a project. It goes from the community service director or whoever the member is, proposes to director. He discusses it with whoever the chair is. finds out which committee it falls in. And then we look at the budget that's allocated within that committee, because we try to do at least two, or if not three, in each of these committees. So basically, I will try to, at the beginning of the year, we'll allocate X amount, say like 5,000 for education, 8,000 for veterans, or whatever, whatever breaks down. So basically, we just, in our club, we try to make sure that we try to fulfill at least two projects a year in each of these committees. This one over here on the far right, there are some projects that for some reason would not fall into these normal committees. So I just created one out there. It's called Community Service Outreach. And when I say usually that, a lot of the requests that our personal club gets is because we've been doing this, kind of stuff for so long, that a lot of times it's like cleaning up somebody's yard, which really doesn't cost anything. It's just basically some manpower. So a lot of those, it's a project. So you can do a lot of things like that. I mean, we hook up with a couple of veterans groups where they'll clean up or fix up veterans properties, and they already have the grants through national or some other organization. So basically we'll still do the project, but provide them, support under the veterans first responders, and things like that. We may provide lunch, water, or whatever, and volunteers. So it doesn't really cost a lot of money. So, and it's impacting them, helping them. And it's majority of the work we do a lot of times is just volunteers. All the food bank stuff is all volunteer hours. They already have the funding from the federal government, so they didn't really need our dollars. They just needed some hands, because the boxes get really heavy, hauling them to the cars and trucks, and then having to put them in for the senior citizens and things like that. So like COVID has changed a lot of things, but it's still a huge need for just basic volunteers in our organization. So if you use something or create something in your club that uses committees, and then designate which projects people bring to you, then that's probably the best way, because then you won't overrun your budget, and you can do a lot of good just by designating which committee things go into. Okay, we still have quite a bit of time. Anybody else have any questions or input about the kind of projects you're doing in your area during the COVID?
Fernando, this is Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
In our club, we decide at the beginning of the year how much we're going to fund for community service. And then later in the year, we have a community giving application process. In order for a local nonprofit to submit an application for funding from the Rotary Club, they have to be sponsored by one of the members of our club. So there's a lot of cross-pollination that goes on with Rotary and other nonprofits and other community service areas in every community. But an applicant then submits an application that is prepared. The form is prepared in advance, and they describe what they're doing, and they provide their credentials. And then that goes to a committee that reviews those, and we decide with the funds that we have, what's the limit of number of organizations that will fund with that. And when those selections are made, they're brought to the club for all the members to hear about what the recommendations of the committee are. And then once that's decided, we invite the heads of those organizations or whoever's in charge of that particular area of need to come before the club and explain who they are and the good that they're doing in the community. And then after that, the club votes and the funds are distributed.
Yep, that's another good process.
Fernando,
Yes,
Bon here from Ventura South.
yes, Bon.
The COVID changed how we did things this past year. Typically, we have some fundraisers that we raise money for some specific projects, and then on organizations. Then for those that come up that we did not allocate a specific fundraiser for, we will go from our foundation to get some money out of it. Since we could not do any of those typical fundraisers this year, our club decided to give out, I believe it was 30,000 to 4 organizations. Turning Point deals with the homeless in our area, in the Ventura County area, and Food Share, which is for the hunger, the Boys and Girls Club in our community, as well as adult literacy for the public library. And that's something that for over 20 years, our club has done a specific fundraiser for that adult literacy. And it's amazing and surprisingly, I know we deal with homeless, how many older people can't read.
Yeah.
And it was shocking to me. And that is just equally as important. Now, I am the incoming service chair or community service chair. My club, the current chair, did a survey assessment like you were talking about of the nonprofits in the county to truly identify what their really needs are, so it can help us identify whether whatever we're focusing on aligns with the needs of the community, or maybe we ought to make some changes. So that's something that we will be reviewing and then using as a guide going forward during my year, which will be next year.
That's
June.
good way to go, because you're just got to focus on what the need is. If people want to go with committees, that's great. I mean, that's basically in our club, we provide the fund and we split it up around the committees, and then we let the chairs decide which projects. Years ago, we used to do the way that Jeff mentioned, but by the time the committees met, they decided, and then if they wanted to bring it to the club, we would basically do very few projects in a year. So they decided to just let the community service director and the chairs bring the projects to the club. They make the decision as long as they're not going over budget. And it's, we don't really fund or do projects that really make no sense in the community. Rotary basically has good connection to all of these nonprofits that are worthy nonprofits. So we just feel if they want project done, and if it's within reason financially, then we'll do it. If it's not, they understand, because they deal with us on a annual basis. But there's so many organizations popping up year after year. You gotta basically go. That's why I said try to meet with people, try to get a feel for them, look at the background of the organization. We don't just do an organization that just pops up. We wait to see if they're really worthy, because there's we have seen where people try to get Rotary, or in our club, try to get money from you, and it turns out they're really not doing anything in the community. They create a nonprofit basically to get people to give them money. So but that's why I said we got to have it created a list of ones that we deal with, that we know of. And if somebody new comes up, then we try to vet them and try to find out whether they're actually going to do something in the community. Because since COVID, there's been a lot of them pop up in our area that say they're helping the homeless, but they're not. They're saying they're helping children, but they're not. So that's why I also work with the county governments to find out, if these people are legit or not as well. It's talking to the community. So. Somebody asked for a copy of the PowerPoint. This message is actually, or there's a meeting is actually, Zoom meeting is being recorded. So my understanding is that in a couple of weeks, it's going to be available on the district website. But if you need an actual copy of the PowerPoint, just send me an email and I can just send you a copy via email back to your organization. And that way you can use it in your club or edit it or do whatever you want with it. Okay, anybody else want to do some input on what they're doing in their club or area?
I would like to add my 2 cents.
Love it.
I'm Sam Wolf in downtown from the Downtown Ventura Club. Um, when I was in SEMI, I was the 2016-17 Community Service Chair. And there was an outbreak of, unfortunately, fires in mobile homes, mobile home parks. And definitely there was a needs analysis that was put together um, in order to keep the budget down and to expand it. I was able to get the Ventura County Fire Department involved. I was able to commingle it with Fire Safety Week. So had the newspapers involved with Fire Safety Week. I also contacted the smoke detector company, who basically does a community distribution at that particular time of smoke detectors. So we had the products available to go ahead install, and we had the backup of our members who went into the mobile home parks in the area to install the smoke detectors, smoke carbon detectors. There was such a need for these smoke detectors in the trailers. Half of them didn't. Half of these trailers didn't have any. Half of them didn't have batteries. Um, it's now an ongoing process with that group, 3 times a year, I believe. But that was a very good move that was needed in the area, and that can go for any area to be blended in with Fire Safety Week.
Yep, that's really good. Yeah, we've done the same thing here. We didn't do it during COVID, but we've done it in previous years with the uh, Salvation Army and the fire departments, and they get the product usually, from Lowe's or some of those on nationwide. So it doesn't cost you anything. You just got to provide some manpower. When we did it with the Salvation Army, and basically you just had to do a little training, make sure that you know what to do when you go into people's homes, not be in their way, just, and so you have to get some proper training. But other than that, there's just some manpower, and it's rewarding, and you get all the youth in your community involved because they like doing that kind of stuff. And then
Definitely,
basically,
I'm sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was saying definitely you do need to have a release of liability and training.
Mhm.
Sunrise has uh, a variety of fire firees, from members from the fire department who work on the project together. So getting the liability, getting the liabilities of the mobile home owners to understand what they had to sign off on. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Okay. Anybody else have something they want to share about their communities or their club, things that you guys have done? Okay, if not, let me mention one more thing that basically we started. The reason I started the Peace and Humanities Committee over here is that Rotary basically is moved to, for several years now, their Rotary Peace Builder Clubs. And then in our community, basically the community college district is basically trying to get big on, because of violence, things like that, and understanding. They're actually creating community gardens at our local junior college. And we've had a couple of webinars with them. And what they want to do is they're going to put in Rotary peace poles in these parks. And if you're not familiar with it, you can look it up at the RI website and just type in Rotary Peace Bowls, and you'll get some sites that hit. And what they are is basically 4x4 signs, and they're done in either 4 or 8 languages. And there's some other companies that'll do them up to 16 languages, and you can pick and choose any language that you want. And basically is the message on the signs in those languages is advancing peace on earth. So basically it's another good project that you can do to advance peace, and it's part of that peace resolution and conflict resolution. And so we have our college already supporting it. That's something that all the clubs in our area have been discussing, and basically all you would have to fund. The polls, I think for a 4 language poll is about $150, and I think it's around $225 for 8 language. But it's really nice project. You can put them, if you can find other places within your community, that anything that we can do basically to help people talk to each other, communicate with each other. And I don't know about in your areas, there's, we have a lot of Hispanics here and they don't speak English. So anything that you can put out there that's in their language, and I'm working with a couple of local communities like Lamont and Arvin, which are predominantly Hispanic, to try to put some of those signs in their area, because they're trying to find ways to get the youth and people in their area to understand, and try to minimize gang violence. So I mean, that's another way to do a quick project, is just some manpower, but you got to have permission from whatever entity you're going to be working with, whether it's the city or the county or a college, high school, or they even make some that for people's personal gardens, if you're interested in that kind of thing. So, and those all qualify as Rotary projects now as well. So. Jeff, what time is the session supposed to be over?
But now,
Now, yeah. Okay, well, thank you all for coming. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or call me. You may get my voicemail box, because I'm always on the phone, but I'll be more than happy to call you back. Just leave your name, number, or email as well. So thank you for attending, and most of all, thank you for becoming community service directors in your club. To me, it's I've been in Rotary 14 years now, and I've been community service director 5 or 6 times now, because that is pretty much what I like about Rotary, being out there in the community, helping people, whether it's one person or 100 people. And it's just really rewarding, especially if you get involved and get a lot of your Rotarians involved. I mean, it's just a rewarding directorship. Thank you for coming. And if you have any questions, like I said, email me and or call me. Thank you.
Thank you all.
thank you.
Yeah.